thanks for joining us today, Shaun. For the audience, anyone who doesn't know you, would you mind just telling us a little bit about who you are and a bit of your background?
Yeah, just a little bit then. So I'm Shaun Walsh, and I set up Four Partners as a co-founder approaching 8 years ago. Now, set up Four Partners being a professional services transformation company dealing with large-scale cloud migrations to regulatory change, and then more so like every other consultancy all over LinkedIn or everywhere else. We're leaning a bit more into AI, but not from a technical perspective, or on the people and process side, which is a segue into why I started 8 years ago as well. I started training as a psychotherapist. So alongside this journey of starting, growing and adapting within a business, I pursued an interest in psychology and psychotherapy. So alongside learning and trying to grow the business, that's also being reflected in myself. I think there's some of that within the businesses and the interactions with the people that we work with. So I'm a qualified psychotherapist, spent several years as a volunteer for a low-cost counselling network. And these two worlds were very separate at the start. It seems as change and adaptation speeds up and we look for that human element, we've got a lot closer together. So I'm curious about exploring that and then genuinely connecting with people to try and add a little bit of scaffolding and stability as we all go through fast-paced change.
It's really interesting.
Super interesting.
I didn't, if you were going to come in there, Clem, but
I'm just thinking, mate, just jumping straight in it. I'm really intrigued as to what was it that led you to be interested in becoming a psychotherapist? If that's not too deep a question to get straight in with at the start.
We could eat an entire podcast episode. So let me try and I'll try and give you the direct synopsis of it. I started from a very strange place. I was training for a marathon and I was running in Croatia for a holiday. And I was up the side of this mountain, baking hot in a thunderstorm. Started rolling in. I remember wanting to stop, but then thinking I'm like literally the wettest thing up the side of this mountain. So I'm like, I'm going to get hit by lightning. So, and then there was almost an injection of a thought, which was contact Andy Williams. So Andy Williams was a guy I met in school when I was about 15, and I was struggling in school. I was engaging with the material. I wasn't really spending much time there, and my head was elsewhere. I didn't have that structure around me. For whatever reason, one day I was in the library and I bumped into this guy and he said to me, "Are you lost? What's somebody like you doing in here?" And I told him to F off. I burst into tears. I thought, oh God, I'm in trouble there. So I followed him off. But kind of fast forward the story. It turns out I wasn't a teacher. He was there to support. And this is like my first interaction with him. So over the course of probably a few months, he spent some time with me. I'm not aware now. He was putting the scaffolding around me that helped me kind of figure out what was going on in my life at that time and probably mitigated a bit of a spiral. From that, I think that gave me the grounding and a bit of breathing space for some clarity. And I ended up joining the army. And that was a random decision. I should have been in school. I think I was on the tail end of being kicked out of the sixth form. And I thought one morning, I'm going to go join the army today. So I got the bus into Leeds. City Summer, signed up for the army. I was 17. And I told my mum and dad at tea time. And they were shocked. They were shocked. And I've apologised to them recently. I've got 2 young kids now. If they did that to me, I'd be distraught. But kind of fast forward in the story, it served me well. I did 5 years in the army. I think that gave me the structure, again, with a bit of hindsight knowledge. I think it gave me the challenge, the dopamine, and the containment to rebuild myself, to balance some of that effort and energy, which could have gone down a completely different route. So kind of fast forward to the psychotherapy when I was running in Croatia, 8 years ago. So I contact this guy. So I got back to where we were staying, thankfully, not hit by lightning. And I just followed him on LinkedIn just to say thank you. Thank you for that period where you were kind to me, really. And he got back in touch with me. Some weeks later, turns out he was living in Horsforth, which was probably too far from me. And since then, this is like a 20-year gap. He set up a psychotherapy training business. And also he was an active, quite prominent psychotherapist within this world. He said to me, why don't you come along to one of these training weekends called TA, Transactional Analysis. It's like a long weekend of looking at some material. So I went along, I had no expectation, but the material made sense to me. And it was a different group of people. It was outside my natural network, which I'd grown within tech, within kind of the leads and business community. It brought something else out in me. So I'm kind of engaging with this material. So I think my experience was different to what was in the room, which was generally from a mental health background or a carer background, or people transitioning between similar careers. I was coming at the material from probably a direct change aspect. And then that built the curiosity of all these models here of drivers within people to either pleasing other people, being strong, reaching for success. Actually, I see that within a business framework of what's either making people the perception of success or actually eroding that energy if they don't feel like they've attained it. Kind of fast forward a bit more, I did that weekend, and then he said to me, do you want to come on to the clinical training? Which again, I just said, well, yeah, I'm interested. It sounds good. I all realised some months after it was like a formal interview process. So then that kicked me off a several year arc of training to a master's degree level in psychotherapy with, accruing hundreds of hours a weekend, a month, going to these on sites, doing coursework. So I went into that. I actually qualified in June last year. And then it became, which is a recurring theme, that, well, what do I do with it now? That's probably led me to here, being open with it, and then trying to connect with people and help in a way for my own meaning making, but just being kind of open and having some honest conversations.
Interesting.
There's no short answer than that.
No, that's super interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And it's interesting you're saying like what to do with it now.
Yeah.
How, and you mentioned the business side of things as well. How do you find, or how do you feel about having done all your training in your psychotherapy side of things? How's that influenced how you've been a leader in the business side of things?
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword. There's awareness with that. I remember starting on this journey. Often, as I've done with many things, whether it's endurance events, start a business, start a project, starting a house renovation, having kids. You're often thinking with the optimism, I'm going to do this and things will be better as a consequence of it.
Yeah.
So with the psychotherapy particularly, I thought, well, I'll do this, I'll know more. And I'll actually feel more consistently balanced and better.
Yeah.
That's not been my lived experience of it. I think there's the knowledge it gives you about yourself, self-reflective. So being in part of the process of training to be a psychotherapist, you need to be in therapy as well.
Yeah.
So that's gonna bring out some of this material. Working with other people and bringing quite serious subjects is something transferential about that. So within the awareness that brings, I think that can be certainly used and harnessed to help hold the space, work with people to get the outcome. But it's a bit of a weight to carry as well. So kind of once you've seen, you can't unsee. So to kind of sit with being reflective and being open to it and feel more. I found it ironically harder feeling more.
Yeah.
And that's led to a sense of vulnerability, but it's probably maybe an overused term now, but not vulnerable where I feel weak.
Yeah.
It's more open to being authentic.
Yeah.
And then what that does to the psychological energy and open to different types of relationships and connections with people.
Yeah. Different
to maybe running a perception and a story of yourself that you want the world to see.
Yeah.
But it's rawer. Because it's rawer, I think it's a harder path to walk. But I'm hopeful as I keep playing my way through. It's a richer path because it's more of a lived experience.
Yeah. So interesting listening to that.
Yeah, you've reminded me of a conversation I had just a few days ago about how, I guess in the working world, people they're in their head a lot rather than kind of operating more at a feelings kind of level. So actually, and again, I don't know if it's something about the British as well, we're quite reserved. We don't like to think about feelings in a work context. What you were just talking about there sounds like you've actually sort of deepened that experience of in all different aspects of your life, I guess. What's your thoughts on that sort of?
That's a mechanism probably to protect ourselves as well. It's difficult to be out there feeling all the time. When we're saying feeling, there's not an extreme example of I'm going to spontaneously burst into tears here, although I might. It's building more awareness. I think it's leading to that awareness and the awareness of yourself and what the component parts that make up yourself, whether it's your past, bringing material from your parents, your environment, your first job, your teachers, some of the tapestry of what I spoke about there. It's the building blocks of what makes you, and adding the awareness onto that and being curious around, well, is that relevant anymore? Was it ever true to start with? That gives you more autonomy and options within the moment, but it also moves the actual choice into your consciousness. And that's sometimes a weight to bear. And there's parallels there with setting up a business other than working for somebody else when it's yours. And you've got the awareness of that it's yours, the weight of responsibility, the loosening of the containment to function within a predetermined system. I think it takes a different mental load and approach. And sometimes we need a rest from it.
That's a really interesting point, actually, as well. I think on the business ownership piece, obviously I'm an owner of a business. Clem, you're an owner of a business as well. And it's all different, and everyone's got their own kind of experiences on it. But I think it's twofold sometimes, isn't it? This is my view on it as well, and everyone's got a slightly different view. But on one side, it's liberating, because I'm not working for somebody else, and I personally didn't like the constraints sometimes of that. And so most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, I'm having a great time, fun, enjoying it, even if it's mentally hard, super stressful, and things going wrong all the time. but I'm a bit of that personality that I'm probably a bit of an over-optimist. But there is a massive weight with it as well. And when things go wrong, you need to be responsible for sorting it out, whether that's at the weekend, whether you're with your kids, whatever. And there is often a cost that's with that piece as well. And it's interesting how you balance it. And I think, personally, different personality types deal with it in different ways. And certainly if we had other business owners from Exalto in the room, they'd have a very different kind of conversation than I would about it. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, there probably is a correlation between the type of people that sell businesses and pursue change. I think what helps me probably survive it more, where it's not completely burning me out, is I've separated my personal identity from the success of the business, which was very, very entwined, weaved from the start of, well, the business is doing well, so I'm Shaun Walsh doing well. Business isn't doing well, then actually Shaun Walsh isn't doing well, I'm a failure. And then what that does to your mental capacity to solve those problems, hold more into your fight, flight or freeze aspect, and so you have hold creativity or mental energy to solve problems and drive them as much as you would. It's holding that balance and the tension of it, and then being aware of what's driving you towards this. Are we actually in pursuit of kind of the dopamine spikes because it's exciting energy you? And then mitigating the track of, well, I'm going to work really hard now, I'm going to sacrifice that time with the kids, with my parents, with my wife, or even sacrifice the time having a rest for the fantasy of a better outcome. And there's a real risk with that, I think, because I've never seen the reality. It's fantasy. We risk trading what we've got now, the opportunity now, for the hope of something better. I think that's part of the human condition and the way society constructs for us to pretty much constantly shoot, right? How we navigate that and retain a sense of self and energy and creativity to hold this space to keep solving problems. For me personally, to recognize there's always more mountains to climb. I'll never do it without. That the more you move through this, the more data points you have. Fortunately, I've got two very close mates that have successfully exited a business. And the fantasy I held within that is, well, these guys are somewhat,
Yes. Yeah.
they're called it all millionaires. So they've got everything to worry about. And I was thinking, I wish I could.
Yeah.
And then ironically, there's a stretch of identity there, because they're no longer who they were to get them that.
Yeah.
So the change in that, and then the stress that causes is different. So that's given me an aspect of, well, actually, it's not as binary as, well, I'm going to sell my business and then I've got financial freedom. I think a lot of it, the core of it in any change, is around personal identity, meaning, then what do we do with that? Again, being aware of it is double-edged sword, because you have to ask yourself hard questions.
Yeah. So I find all of that incredibly fascinating, and it sent my head into loads of different ways. But one of the questions I suppose that really popped out was, if you go back to the start of like Perform, not necessarily your psychotherapy base, but what led you or drove you to set up a business?
Naivety. Naivety, optimism.
Yeah. I can do this. Yeah.
And all mixed. It's not like many things. There's no one answer. I think naivety isn't there.
Yeah.
Certainly, because there's a lack of experience doing it.
Yeah.
And then you see other aspects. Just from my own perspective, you have the fantasy of other people starting businesses.
Yeah.
Or bigger firms, and the actual quality of what they're delivering, we feel you can do better. So, the specific opportunity with the firm was, well, there's a massive, well-known, big consultancy within the sphere that we're operating.
Yeah.
And the people in there aren't delivering this thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And actually, we cared about the outcome of that. So we took the opportunity to take more control and resolve that, and then Perform grew out of it.
Yeah.
The naivety came in thinking, well, we've done that here. We're actually fantastic at delivering. We'll just repeat that again and again.
Yeah.
The learning's over nearly 10 years since I would start with sales, and I didn't we can build the best delivery engine.
Yeah.
I think it can be tuned. You can have the best processes, you can pay the best wages to the best people, best in the business. If you've got no fuel for that engine, if you haven't got the connections, the pipeline to bring it in, then it seizes. So part of the ongoing lessons with Perform and other businesses is and start with, how are you going to feed it? And is the actual demand, or is that just within the fantasy or construct pushed on the optimism of starting something which feels better than dealing with what's in front end?
Super interesting. We've had similar.
Oh yes, I think that's, from my point of view, the starting my own business, which is just me. It's a solo person business. The sales bit, the marketing is indeed the really hard bit. Working with clients, I love doing that, but it's finding the clients in the first place, which is the bit that's super challenging. So I guess there's always learning in new situations, isn't that? That's the thing. But until you enter into it, you're never quite sure as to what that is. So,
and it's really interesting. So somebody you guys both know, and he's been on a podcast before, Stuart Bullock, who was at the time he just left BJSS. And I said, what's the one thing that kept you up at night as a CEO? And he said sales. And I think I would agree with that as well. And it's, whatever your business is, you need the sales of coming through. And it's, fortunately, before doing Exalto, I'd been in a MD role, so I'd kind of probably knew it a bit more. But it still doesn't make it any easier, because when you start in a new business, you've got nothing.
Exactly.
You've got absolutely nothing.
And again, I don't think the problem's ever solved.
No.
It's constant. It needs that constant effort, attention, and somewhat the awareness of what that costs. So for many years, we focused, and rightly so, on being a fantastic delivery company, customer obsessed. We do what we say with them. On an official tagline, we get shit done. Which may be called official and down. But the change in that effort and the culture that brings, it's without the fuel, then it withers. There's maybe something cultural of being a bit northern as well. We get our heads down, we crack on, we get stuff done. It takes that little bit more of effort to say, I've done a good job there. Can you have a word with your mate and see if anything else needs to be done? Can you give us a testimonial? Or game yourself out to the networking events and meeting people. I don't think there's any substitute for that, and that's been a lesson I feel I've learned too late and now trying to catch up. I've been out there meeting people. They're not pushing it from a sales perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not a salesperson, but I like solving problems. I like speaking at people. Hey, and then being more authentic about that. Generates tune.
It's interesting. I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole with it, but I'm fascinated by the psychology of sales as well. Having had a lifetime, pretty much 20 odd years of working in sales, so recruitment initially, and then running it's all sales and then running sales teams as well. And you get to see, luckily you get to see what works, what doesn't work, and how good high performers operate. I think the number one kind of psychological trait you need to have in sales is being able to deal with rejection. And it's incredibly hard, whether you're in consultancy sales, whether you're in recruitment, whether you're in like whatever it is, like 90 probably 7% of the time you get a rejection. And so you need to be able to deal with that. And I think it's a really interesting concept if you go deep on it and you start looking at identity and how you manage that, how robust you are, how you can keep yourself going. Like that's a series of podcasts in itself, really. But it is a fascinating thing, and I think not that many people really are good at it. So anyway, it's an interesting one.
Well, that resilience as well, which is a practice skill. I probably don't know the overused term, but knowing yourself, being aware that the rejection doesn't have to occur somewhere.
Yes,
it can be transactional. You can offer. You still believe you need to offer an authentic version of yourself within that role as well. And there's some vulnerability in that. So, in many respects, how grounded and stable are you? And then this comes back to that feeling aspect. My personal experience, it's harder to feel, not numb it. I stopped drinking 8 years ago. So, like the reach to numb the feelings or put yourself in a different mindset's different. I've probably pacified that more with endurance events than exercise. But it's again coming back to awareness, where you're directing your attention. Is it aligned with the outcomes that go on? And what was healthy last month and helping you a year ago is still relevant. And these are constant things. But balance is a moving pivot point because the environment and we're constantly in flux.
And it's so interesting listening to it, because I think we've known each other for a while, and I've had a few conversations that go like this. But most people I speak to, I don't think actually think about these things like consciously. And maybe, as you say, this is part of the burden from having the training of being a psychotherapist. And in a different, obviously, coaching's different to psychotherapy in quite a different way. It's much more future focused, but there actually brings out a lot more awareness in you and understanding in a lot of stuff. So you do then start consciously thinking about things, I believe, more so. So your head goes into some of these spaces, and I just find it fascinating. With your endurance kind of head on, and you've moved towards your endurance sports, how has that affected you kind of in your business life, do you think?
It gave a good tonic, I think. I moved towards, so when we're talking about endurance, I'm a professional endurance athlete. I've done a few events at the Apex Everest, going up and down Hellbell multiple times. To the height of Everest on the same loop, and that was an interesting challenge. And just after that, the Lakes in a Day event from Calbeck down to Calmount, which was similar but not the same. I mean, training for stuff like that in middle age, it's like a part-time job. But I found the structure that it gave me is a good balance to mitigate kind of going all in and being obsessive about the work within the business, or even try to turn down some of these things, rattle it around my head. So I respond well to that structure. But interestingly, I've not got the same drive to train like that, and I don't feel the same need for that structured post event now. So these things emerge sometimes when the idea how much we punish ourselves through the is it's probably a different podcast entirely. But it was a useful experience, and it hurt physically and mentally.
It's interesting, isn't it? I haven't done proper ultra. I did one marathon years ago, but I like trail running. I like exercise. I exercise very regularly. We've talked about it on here previously as well. And I think linking it into the business side of things, I always knew when I left previous role coming into Exalta, I always knew it was going to be hard. So one of the things I've been doing for years is trying to do more hard things in my personal life, usually exercise kind of base, but almost as like training for business stuff, if that makes sense. It's kind of like building layers of resilience a little bit, because you know it's going to be hard, and almost like a bit of like decision making hard things in your head, like, because a lot of the things in a business role, including sales, you don't necessarily want to do it. You don't necessarily want to pick your phone up and ring someone a cold call. You don't necessarily want to have a tough conversation. You don't necessarily want to give someone some critical feedback, but they're things that you need to do to be successful. So it's kind of like building up these little building blocks to try and
building habits.
The compounded habits. I think it's building up those neural pathways and knowing you've got that capability in yourself. And often reminding yourself of that as well. So I think if anything, the endurance events, it showed that I could keep going. And there is parallels with that, with a business, trying to grow a business, trying to adapt a business, trying to solve the next problem. But I think the other side of it, what it taught me, is that recovery is very important. It's not just about the training and flogging yourself and suffering. Actually, the gains come from the recovery of it. And making more peace with that. And from my perspective, being less shameful of that. I've often felt when I've stopped, when I'm not doing something, when I'm having a day off, or just kind of sat about feeling flat, there's been a lot of shame there and weight, with the voice, it's being conscious also, I should be doing this. If I don't do this, then I'm not going to get that. The endurance events made me stop because of the energy. Recovery needed. So if anything, and this is still new territory for me, there's less shame in stopping and actually embodying the recovery. And I found that mitigates me from kind of being on a high and getting things done and doing the events, and then dropping down to disengagement, feeling flat and not wanting to do anything. I found that curves a lot less. If I can give myself permission to recover, then I can go back more.
And you find that sorry, Clem, go on.
No, I mean, I was just interested, what does recovery look like in a kind of business context? Because I guess there's a relentless kind of expectation that businesses are always striving for growth, striving for the next thing. I'm just wondering how that same concept of recovery would kind of apply in a business context.
I think it's got a rhythm to it. Part of that is, there's a common thread here, building awareness. That's all you do, and not constantly putting in new changes and so accounting for how people respond to that. Being consistent with the message, even if that message changes. These are the reasons we're doing things. Adding periods of stability. For myself, the awareness is not dropping on calls and thinking, right, we need to go in this direction now. So that's dysregulated people. Because we're dealing with people, everybody's got an infinite amount of perspectives and different needs. So I think within like training physically, like delivering a project, doing something in the business, building habits, I think it's about consistency. Keeping things as simple as possible, but accepting that's something they're often complicated, and being consistent with it. And actually talking to people and connecting with the way you can.
That's really interesting as well, I think. And obviously you guys are a consultancy. So again, I'd imagine that most of the time your people are on, working with customers and stuff. How do you layer that kind of in? So my mind, when I was listening to you there, my mind was going, actually, we've been very busy in the business for quite a long period of time, and then how do you layer in some of that recovery kind of stuff? And it was making me critically think, actually, should we be having a bit more of that in there? And I'd be interested how you've.
It's difficult. There's no one answer to it, because it's contextual to the environment. And the temptation is, if you don't face into it, it's just it's easier to have people out there still making money. Clients often get used to the people that they're working with. I think that's transactional trust and familiarity. So it's difficult to swap them out. And then this all goes into the mix about identity as well. So if somebody's working within a client or customer for a long time, there's some bleed over of that customers' identity and culture within that person.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, part of it is accepting that you can't control everything.
Yeah.
Do what you can.
Yeah.
And people's needs are different.
Yeah.
You know, more and more people just don't want to go into Leeds and have a drink.
Yeah.
Which suits me now, but
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
You know, so what needs are you meeting? Why? And then when? Because it's not generic to everybody at the same time.
Yeah.
But I think same as anything, just being able to talk to it, because people are overtly conscious of what's going on and what they need with something. People have got a great sense of everything anyway. So back to being authentic, calling it like it is, and saying, even asking what can we do about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've made me think of a couple of things there as well. One is there is a natural rhythm, I guess, to the year, which is kind of built around our society and culture. You know, so often there are quieter periods, I guess, in the summer where people take more holidays, recovery of sorts.
Yeah.
Then around, you know, things like Christmas, often again, there's a bit of a break for people there. But I guess it's also, you also made me think of sustainable pace. You know, how do we go at a pace? Again, this is relevant to endurance events. You know, you don't set off so fast that you then just burn out and you can't finish. How do we actually run a business at a sustainable pace that is not this cycle of kind of burnout and then having to crash? Not saying it's easy, but it's, how do we that to me seems like something that actually would be a useful thing for more businesses to kind of try and focus on.
No doubt it would, but there's a real tension to hold there.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, there's different pressure points. Had you got that sustainable pace and protect the people, protect the energy off of all these other opportunities, none of that's happening unless you've got revenue.
Yes, absolutely.
Start getting fractured.
Yeah.
Right from the values to being able to do all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then how do you meet that against client expectations?
Very much.
Which go into the mix. So it's difficult. I think it's difficult, you know, and you've got to maybe voicing it, holding the tension and making some of those hard decisions and accepting if there's going to be a drop off, then it's a drop off in your revenue and not the people. But then that can only go too far.
Yeah.
It's not about the people.
Yeah, that's that tension, absolutely.
It's a real dichotomy that it's that, you know, we talk a lot about like people-centric leadership, and you know, there's often I heard a phrase the other day, people over performance, and it's like, and it's absolutely true. But so to your point with actual, if you haven't got the revenue coming in, then often you can't do a load of those things as well.
Yeah.
But also on the flip side, when you start doing well, you're driving really well, often then you start chasing the cash bit of it a bit, and it drives, and and the other bits drop as well. So it's you know, it's a bit like everything. It's like trying to get something sustainable. It's like a living, breathing kind of organism of the business, and trying to regulate it.
And that balance point, as you were saying, is sort of constantly shifting. You know, you've got to always be thinking, have we got the balance right? And that's not an easy question to answer.
I'm fond of the term, the map's not the terrain. So, you know, checking, well, what's the reality now? And then what factors are influencing that? And where do we need to get to? And then kind of what we were saying earlier, don't carry the fantasy that you're going to solve all the problems. There's just going to be some more problems. You know?
Yes.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we're drawn to it anyway. Whether it's through create your own problems by walking for 20 hours or, you know, some kind of other sport. It's within the human condition to seek and solve. How we hold that, and then the weight that we carry with that is built through awareness, and that's up to us. Looking at that from a leadership level, I think embodying it there, that can give more opportunities to people that aren't necessarily, that are feeling it, but maybe have not got the direct application of it. And it's our job as leaders, I think, to hold that space whilst everyone's trying to navigate any endless amount of change and problems that's really just speeding up.
Yeah, no, it is. I find it super fascinating. With your psychotherapy piece, correct me if I'm wrong, but you do coaching as well, is that right?
Yeah, so I kind of, you know, the outcome of psychotherapy was, when do I start a small out-of-hour psychotherapy practice? And then how does that align with the other interests that I've got? So within the psychotherapy modality that I studied, which is transactional analysis, there's there's a coaching aspect to it as well.
Yeah.
And all the way through this journey, several years, the training officer said, "You're very outcome focused, Shaun."
yeah.
But what it has done, if anything, it helped me broaden that aspect. So maybe not just outcome focused.
Yeah.
So the psychotherapy has given me a greater depth of understanding.
Yeah.
And then the recurring question for myself is, well, what do I do with that now?
Yeah.
And I lean naturally more towards coaching and the outcomes.
Yeah.
With respect of, well, what are we carrying to get us here?
Yeah.
So rather than going actually deep within the past and working in that type of material,
Yeah.
what gives me energy and helps transfer onto potential clients is, well, what we're working towards.
Yeah.
It's a cap for what we can.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a balance again, the tension between them.
Yeah.
But weaves into personal change
Yeah.
informed by the past.
Yeah.
I write that down as a title.
Personal change informed by the past. You heard it here first.
Yeah, interesting. Because obviously we started this based on the fact that we both do coaching as well.
Yep.
But again, not trained in psychotherapy, so it's very much like the future kind of focus stuff that we work on. But I personally, having gone through that kind of coaching journey, I feel from a leadership perspective, it's like definitely changed the way that I approach things a lot more. Definitely better at listening. I like talking, so I've definitely got better at listening with it as well. What kind of skills do you think it's brought for you by going through the process? Like in terms of your leadership piece with, within your teams.
I keep coming back to awareness, but it's given me a bigger toolkit to engage with, different aspects of conversations.
Yeah.
But it's not like I want to switch it on all the time.
Yeah.
When I've been on this journey and I've described learning to be a psychotherapist, often the caliber on nice people assume that they're analysing them. I mean, I've not got the cluster of mental energy to do that. Most of it's taken up for trying not to analyse myself all the time. So there's aspects of that. I think I carry less anxiety into situations as well.
Yeah.
One of the sharpest actually tools in the kit bag has been recognising the concept of transference. So if we're having a conversation, say maybe feeling energized or maybe feeling anxious. Yeah. It's recognising that sometimes potentially that's not mine, that's mirrored.
Okay, interesting.
The person. So that's kind of more of an embodiment.
Yeah.
The really good psychotherapists, they're almost like Jedi masters.
Right, okay,
They can recognise that and they can pull the thread from what's sitting with them, what's potentially coming from the other person, and use that as material in the work.
Interesting.
That's like 10,000 hours stuff. Mastery stuff is that. And I've got the small weaving and the thread with it. So
I've not come across transference before, have you?
Again, we covered it briefly on my coaching course, and I found it really interesting, the kind of concepts of transference and counter-transference, and between, essentially you've got two humans kind of interacting at many different levels, really. And I guess on a kind of probably the most simplistic level, it's when you just sense that energy change, and you feel either in yourself or you see it in the client somehow, or you feel it somehow. Something shifted there. What's going on there is always really interesting. Either it's an upwards energy shift or the other, and you're like,
I know you've described it. There's been plenty of times when you notice it. You notice it all the time. Yeah. Would you say, even in a very basic level, that's, for example, if somebody is, naturally a little bit more biased, like, I don't know, I was using the wrong word there, but a little bit moody, or, they're naturally a glass half empty type person, and that energy then transfers onto you sometimes if you're around somebody like that all the time. Is that in a very basic way? Would that still be part of it?
But I think it's still with mirror neurons.
Right.
That's the neurology of it. We're picking up. So we act a lot with the non-verbal. So even with this interaction, we're kind of tuned into the mood of it, the tone, where our hands are, etc. That sits within the unconscious. And if anything, the psychotherapy brings that more within the practitioner's consciousness, but used within service of the work. So not for an overt influence perspective. So you've got a broader aspect But then, that's a lot to hold as well. Anything from a leadership perspective, it's maybe gives me more awareness from my kids.
Yeah.
Not that I get any of it right all the time.
Yeah.
And that's the double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You're more aware when you get it wrong.
Interesting. Yeah. So you haven't got it in your toolkit that you can go into a room now as a leader and like shift the energy with it from like even like NLP type, or like from your psychotherapy skills, that you're like this Jedi master going into rooms and like work with me, you will. Right. Yeah.
It's how I got on this podcast.
Yeah, we think we invited him.
Interesting, when you talk about going into a room, it does happen on the individual level.
Yeah.
But I've seen it in groups as well. I think it compounds out into like an organizational dynamic. So like we can sense the energy of a workshop.
Yeah. Yes.
Of a team.
Yeah.
You can see it within people unconscious of connecting at football matches.
Yeah.
And chanting.
Yeah.
That fascinates me.
Yeah.
What the hidden weave between human interaction and then the potential positives and negatives of that.
Yeah.
Mass group think and influence for the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And that's something in the human condition, but it's the ingredients of change.
Yeah.
And I think that's what led me more to seeking to understand this more.
Yeah.
So whether we're talking about technology change, business change, any type of human influence thing.
Yeah.
For now, I'm going to recall this might be different next week with the iterations of technology out there. Humans are always involved, and how we respond psychologically influences the outcome. Yeah. And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I frighten it.
Yeah.
Because it's infinite.
Yeah. It is interesting to listen to that. My mind went straight to, there are certain leaders that when they kind of walk into a room and command a room and have the presence, and, and some people I just believe, I don't know what you guys think, but I naturally just have more of that energy and presence about them that enables them to maybe, rightly or wrongly so, you think back in history and stuff, like persuade people and influence people to do things that they want to do. And I know you can learn a lot of leadership stuff, but some of it does come through that.
Yeah, I think so. The raw material, that could be different. It's different potential. I think a lot of it, and what we perceived as natural, and this person's always been my friend, there's thousands of hours of training, refinement, and getting it wrong. Yeah. But then again, going through it and being resilient within it, with the knowledge that we can grow and get better. Don't believe that, then we won't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, we've talked about awareness a few times. Leaders being aware of that when they enter a room and the impact that has, and whether that's positive or negative, and what the group needs in that particular time. I think having that awareness then allows you to more consciously try and shift that. Yes, yeah. And so I think sometimes some leaders will just not be thinking about it and the impact, but when you start to become aware of it, you can then, I feel, kind of be more conscious about how you're then impacting on that situation. Not in a kind of, manipulative way, but just actually being, okay, I think I've sensed this is going on. What do I need to change in how I'm behaving and interacting to change things? Well,
100%. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this quite a few times of like flexing your leadership style to the situation. Yeah. Like in a crisis, you definitely need to be a little bit more authoritarian and actually, help people navigate through the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was having a conversation very recently around, I'm sure we've all can think of those leaders that when they came into the room, the atmosphere shifted and not necessarily in a good direction. Yeah. It's just like, and then suddenly everything shifts. Yeah. But then likewise, there are those people that you think, actually, I'm really glad they're here now. Yeah. Something's changed.
So digging more of that, if you're doing that from a leadership perspective, what could feel natural, really ridging it down this path a bit, what could feel natural, I think can be harnessed and developed more, rather than just relying on what worked previously. Mm-hmm. The stage is constantly adapting. So if you can bring, again, overused term, the awareness into it, and what is going on in here, tuning into that. But what outcome do I need, which ties into the coaching. I think maybe a route to that is emotional intelligence as well. So friends and colleagues, Christy Dean, she does a lot of work on them, so we're co-presenting things, but that feels like an accessible way. You know, talking about advanced coach, and like, you guys are, right? Is it years of, you know, profession within itself, the psychotherapy 7 years, a lot of what's useful within application to the business of running teams, a good doorways, being aware of emotional intelligence within yourself, and then understanding within others, and then using that knowledge to navigate effectively. So you're not just acting from your unconscious.
And I think that's an interesting one on the emotional intelligence piece as well. I mean, we've talked about this quite a few times, and we're delivering a course recently where that was like a component of it as well. But I genuinely believe, especially kind of where we are in the world now with like a lot of technology changes, but a lot of uncertainty as well, that there's uncertainty of like, what are the jobs of the future, what are the skills of the future, especially with everything becoming more automated. And, you know, so actually indexing a bit more on the human side and the emotional intelligence kind of skills is actually something that's going to be really important.
And that feels like the rational way to approach it, and I'm curious about it. I mean, you know, I'm leading into that from bringing these worlds closer together. Angela, to being able to hold that space and give people some scaffolding and meaning making around it helps us navigate, certainly with the rate of change, it can be very dysregulated. And that comes back to meaning making our identity. You know, if this is changing, well, what's my role now? If my role's not that, who am I now? What is the future? You know, and it's always uncertain. I think if we risk obsessing too much about that, we trade what we have got in front of us now, and we limit our options because the thinking's inhibited too much by the fight, flight, or freeze. Whereas personally, I feel more content and able to navigate when I can think of options. If I feel trapped, you know, I'm dysregulating myself, I'm disengaging, and that's not serving whatever future outcomes there. So this is rooted in identity.
100%. And I think especially if you're talking about so many people's identities, I think are linked to their profession and what they do, right? You know, rightly or wrongly. You mentioned it previously, that like, and I think not having your identity linked to your job is a really good thing, you know, and it's a really positive thing. But I think a lot of people do, and then if you go through this rate of change where things are, you know, lots of jobs have been lost. Jobs are definitely changing, especially in technology as well. So there may well be a large kind of crisis of identity with that as well. And like you've talked about having young kids, I've got young kids, Clem, you've got kids as well. It's like, what are they going to do in the future as well? So, you know, in my mind, I'm definitely thinking and talking to my kids a little bit more about kind of emotional intelligence skills, not labeling it as emotional intelligence, but it's like, you know, how to deal with uncertainty, how to deal with change, you know, actually just being a bit more open to things and not being right, I'm going to be a lawyer from, you know, when I'm 10, I want to be a lawyer and this is what I'm going to do. It's like, actually, that might not exist.
I think the good skills anyway, I mean, whatever context we plug in, it's the human process. There is always going to be change. If we relax the fantasy that what changes is always going to be a good or a bad thing. Change to never, so to us, our response. The skills to navigate it, transcend whatever comes from it, context them, and so to bring up happy, kind humans. You know, those skills will serve whatever comes. The part is whatever's on the horizon, big worry for the kids. Now, even if we had a static vision of the future that you change much, we'd worry. You know, it's natural. The same way, you know, very similar parallels that we worry for the business. The business has often felt like a race of a child. To the point where even there's an impact on your identity when it becomes less dependent on you. It's my role mine now. This used to be mine. You know, if a PE firm takes it over, with somebody else bringing up your kid, then so being able to recognize that, adapt with it, understand the ingredients, why you're responding like that, not freeze yourself on the fantasy of the future, which you'd always try and sit with kind of more stability with it. Now that's the trick. Certainly not.
That was actually going to be my question. That was going to be my question. I had to manage with that. It is an interesting one, isn't it? And I think certain people deal with that in different ways, and you see it in life cycles of business as well. One of them you often see in when people are progressing through leadership, it's a similar thing but different. But it's kind of like you go from being an individual contributor in whatever you are. I mean, you could be a coder or project manager or what have you. And then you progress up to the leadership role, and actually you're no longer the person who's doing the do, but you're leading a team of people who are doing the do. And again, there's a bit of an identity loss bit in that as well. But there's also sometimes a bit of like, can you let go and delegate? Can you trust other people to do the work for you? Your outcome is now based on your ability to lead other people to get an outcome versus what you actually can do. And in that, there's a bit of kind of going through that. Actually, that's a weird change piece to kind of go through as well. So you see it in different cycles, in different things as well. And some people, like I've seen it over the years numerous times in teams that we've had, some people are really quite good at doing that, and it comes to them a little bit more naturally. And other people find it really, really challenging and really hard to let go and kind of trust in other people and stuff as well. And interestingly, the ones who get to the senior leadership, right to the top, are typically people who can let go and delegate much easier and trust in other people, I believe. This is just a personal belief. I don't know whether there's any truth in it. I've never measured it or anything, but I think the ones who can learn to delegate and trust other people quicker usually seem to go right more senior in organisations. I don't know what do you think, Paddington?
I mean, I guess I'm sure that must be true, because I think you just simply do not have the capacity, I think, in a large scale business to be both delivering and running the whole thing. But then at the same time, I guess there are those leaders who, very much still want to kind of control, micromanage. There is a sort of, they are calling all the shots. Even in some large businesses, it's very much like everything goes up to then come back down again. And that's an interesting thing there about how perhaps they haven't let go of the thing that they feel is theirs and wanting to kind of control it in a kind of key way, whereas others maybe are able to sort of let their identity change a little bit more, step back. I don't know.
It's an interesting.
Not really. But I mean, I guess how many owners of really large businesses are still doing the job they did when they started out? I can't imagine it would be too many.
No,